Another Rehoboth incident from about the same time period. A man looked out into a snowy field near his home and saw what appeared to be a Christmas tree brightly burning from the bottom up. He went out and investigated it and found nothing. Now the Raynham dog track. This is one of the places like the gas station. Whenever you go there, you lose. Phantom orbs have been seen there. Balls of light seen along the railroad tracks every January. There are tales of a headless track walker holding a lantern. Now, they didn't have iPods in those days, did they? I always hear about these tales about headless track walkers. Howling noises are heard near the dog track. Glowing eyes in the woods. Along a stretch of Route 138, there are odd things that happen, including roadrunners. And I'll touch on that momentarily. This is the picture of the power plant, a very creepy place. It's an abandoned cement plant, actually. Photo by Chris Pittman. Across the street from this dog track is an abandoned power plant. And allegedly, there lurks a dreadful entity, according to folklore. People hear what sounds like a person moving around deep in the swamp, off of the trails, with loud crunching footfalls. You'll hear these themes repeated over and over. There was a major Bigfoot-type sighting here, documented by Chris Pittman in 1999. In fact, this is the area. That's a photograph of where the Bigfoot was seen. Another photograph of that area. There's still another of this path. This is near where we took our Hockomock Swamp tour. So, I believe in Bigfoot. I just don't know what it is.
It's a Bigfoot.
A tale has a teenager and his father on a dirt road in Bridgewater when they saw what looked like a little kid in a costume sitting on a brick wall. The kid gets up and runs, but its arms and legs seem extremely strange. It looked as if all the bones in his limbs had been broken. Another tale. One area resident looked into an old barn window and saw a small black thing that looked like a midget high up on a wall. The form seemed to disintegrate and move towards the witness like a mist. He fled and returned later, but saw nothing, but heard weird screeching noises like a pig. Now this is the area where we took our Hockomock Swamp tour, these power lines that you can see. Very strange things happen, UFO sightings, Bigfoot sighting here. Hunters go off on the left side there. And I remember walking down there, I was with a documentary crew, walking down the path. It was an unseasonably warm December 1st of 2008 maybe. I was on this TV show, I forget what it was. Either way, I look in the tree and I can see orange, 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 orange. Hunters locked and loaded. You move, boy. You move off the trail. You scare that deer, boy. I'm going to put her on just by your ear. Strange lights and noises in the sky above the massive power lines that run throughout the swamp. A Bigfoot-type entity was spotted lurking in the tree-lined swamp off of this embanked berm access road that runs under the power lines. That again happened in 1999. And again, this is the site of my Hockomock Swamp tour, which plays into the story on August 2nd, 2009. Roadrunners. It's said that a ghostly phantom lurks in the Hockomock Swamp off of Route 138. This entity is sometimes glimpsed briefly and described as a weird figure. Late at night in 1999, a man was driving south on Route 138 with his young son when a horrible-looking creature came running out onto the road. He was sure that a collision was unavoidable, and he closed his eyes to brace himself, but nothing happened. One report has a strange entity that is seen ducking down in an empty car on Elm Street in Bridgewater. Elm Street plays into our story as well. It was described as having an almost skeletal face, white as a sheet of paper, without hair, eyebrows, lips, or a protruding nose. Demon Dog of Abington. In the spring of 1976, a giant black dog was seen ripping at the throats of two fallen ponies in Abington, Massachusetts. It was encountered by an Abington police officer named Frank Curran, who fired multiple shots at point-blank range at the dog, but the dog just ambled down the railroad tracks as if unharmed. It was about the size of the ponies, they were saying. Well, a massive search posse was dispatched, spearheaded by local police and environmental officials, and several residents reported seeing this dog throughout the spring of 1976. And as you know, black dogs, or hellhounds, are portents of evil and approaching death, especially in British Victorian literature, In fact, The Hound of the Baskervilles by Sir Arthur Conan Doyle features this theme. Bird's Hill Thunderbird. In the spring of 1971, police officer Thomas Downey was traveling through eastern Massachusetts to his home in Norton when a large bird landed in front of his car. He stopped short. I lived, it was amazing, about a quarter mile down the road from where this incident happened. In fact, I went to school in the Bridgewater Triangle. Throughout my life, I've lived in this area. So he stops short. He sees this gigantic bird, and he estimates that this bird has a wingspan of 10 to 12 feet and glowing eyes. The bird flapped its wings, rose up, and flew over his car. And this was late at night. His description was that of a pterodactyl. Now, I tend to think that birds that you see, I was just watching hawks over the park here at the break, and you know, scavenger birds, it's a good living for them nowadays. You know, seagulls the size of P-51s, you've got these huge crows that have attitudes. We have these things, I call them chicken of the end times, Canadian geese. Right? When things get bad, we're coming after you. Anyways, Officer Downey was scorned by fellow officers and nicknamed the Birdman. And to this day, he doesn't want to talk about this incident. He wants nothing to do with it. Swears it happened, but won't talk about it. And of course, I've located the exact area of this event. What about thunderbirds in the Bridgewater Triangle, especially the Hockomock Swamp? Well, in 1998, a man reported seeing two gigantic birds engaged in a pecking talon battle above the Hockomock Swamp. A woman driving in her car with her husband in 1999 claimed that a gigantic bird with characteristics of a pteranodon, that's kind of like a pterodactyl, came out of nowhere and swooped at their vehicle, nearly hitting the windshield and startling the couple. That's a creepy picture. This is the dark woods, again, Christopher Balzano's book. Great book, Bridgewater Triangle. He also has a book called Ghosts of the Bridgewater Triangle. Freetown State Forest. Well, it was purchased from the Wampanoag tribe in 1659 by the settlers. Many Native Americans have claimed that the odd and evil events since then are the result of a tribal curse. Skirmishes in King Philip's War were fought here. It's the site of various cult activity, including animal sacrifices. There's a high number of suicides that have taken place in this forest. Ritualistic murders committed by admitted Satanists. Gangland murders, over a dozen. In 1998, a single adult cow was found butchered in the woods. Also that year, a group of calves were, that's a New England pronunciation, isn't it? It should be calves. Oops, I said it, I'm sorry. Were discovered in a clearing, and they were grotesquely mutilated. Odd lights have been seen in the woods there. And then Taunton State Hospital. It's a weird place. First opened in 1854 to alleviate the strain felt by the state hospital in Worcester. It was originally named the State Lunatic Asylum. This day and age, not politically correct. Now a secure lockup and mental health facility in use by the Massachusetts Department of Youth Services, the Department of Social Services, and the Department of Mental Health. And you're wondering why taxes are so high with all of these departments. It houses convicted juvenile offenders. Rumors of cult activity are at the hospital. Staff members would bring their more incapacitated patients down into the basement to conduct bizarre rituals to Satan. The basement still has unexplained markings on the walls. The staff, uninformed about the history of what has happened there, have reported cold spots that move with them throughout the basement. One staff member claimed he reached the final step only to feel himself stop. He closed his eyes and felt as if he were experiencing the awful things that had happened there in vivid detail. He quit the next day and still has trouble describing what he saw. So they were torturing patients down there. Remember, those in the middle of the 19th century, they were still drilling on skulls and using leeches.
Yeah, but the copay was cheap, John.
The copay was cheap, that's right. There was no copay. And you didn't have a primary care physician. The dude with the drill was your primary care physician.